it, and I don't know why the link wouldn't.
Yeah.
Problem is if everyone's over at that other link.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna try.
Wait a minute. Having problems?
Yeah, some people are starting to get on here.
Are they?
I like those sets.
Uh-oh.
Twist and turn, flip, pop, all night long. And I went to sleep this morning. Woke up at 9 o'clock. I had to go to sleep.
Let's see if he'll answer his phone. He's texting me.
Well, I wonder if he got on it on his computer and if that's causing my problem.
That's what I'm fixing to say. It's his fault.
No.
Hey, is it up and running now? Can you see it?
There's 6 people up.
No, nothing yet. Okay, back out of it and come back in to YouTube. Try again. Because we had to do something a little different today. So back out, stay on the phone with me. I want to see if it works for you, okay? We've got some people on, but it could be they came in a little later. We didn't get in as early as we was trying. The computer wouldn't cooperate, so that'll learn us from now on. We will be up and running in 5 minutes. Of course, he was trying to get it up and running. Okay, you're good. Okay, good deal. All right, that's good. All right, bye. Control my wife. Yeah, see if she gets in. See if she's in.
That's reset.
She has difficulties with that whole deal anyway. Hey, are you hooked up? Okay, you got him on then. Oh, okay. No, I haven't seen him. He might have come today. Okay, all right, that's one we sure use more. All right,
Morning, Miss O'Neill. Morning, Miss Blanton. Got a few people getting on here.
go ahead and, if you want to.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna get started. We were having some problems. I don't know what the deal was. The link I had put in, YouTube wouldn't let me go live with it. There was no option. The go live button wasn't working. I don't know what the deal was. I had a link on there for in the description, so you could get a handout if you wanted for today's Sunday school lesson. I don't think I'm going to get to the whole thing. We'll probably get through about half of it, and we're going to look at the family and different duties of the different people in the family. And you may wonder, Pastor Dunbar, why do you discuss some of that? The duties of a husband or the duties of a wife to teenagers. Well, I think they need to know what is expected if they decide to go that route. Many teenagers, as they're getting older, they start looking at possibility of marriage, and they need to know what God has to say about their role in that aspect. And then we're going to look at some other areas as well with children and siblings and things, and they can see what they need to take care of at that, at the current time and being. So we're going to look into that. Our first example of a family in Scripture is with Adam and Eve. And I was thinking about it, and it's interesting, the example they kind of set. There are some things that happened, and I guess I'm looking at some of the negative examples they set. First of all, we see that Eve led her husband. Instead of submitting to her husband and following him, and he being the leader, she ended up leading him there for a little bit. And when she brought the fruit to Adam and told him to partake of it, he should have stepped up and led her and said, no, I'm not going to do this. And, should have rebuked her for doing it herself, because he had given her the direction not to eat that fruit. But instead, she led him, And we see the problem that happened there is because he followed his wife instead of being a leader in the home. All of humanity was plunged into sin. Another example, we see that their siblings, they didn't learn to get along. I think Abel may have learned to get along, but Cain didn't learn to get along with his brother. And we see what happened there eventually, because he got upset with his brother and couldn't handle it. He ended up killing his own brother. We see the first murderer within the first family is Cain. And then the second thing, or the third thing, and this deals with Cain as well, is the parents didn't properly teach their children to worship God. Cain starts the first false religion. He knew, he saw what was supposed to be done, but instead he turned his back on how things should be done to worship God and wanted to worship God his own way. That's what a false religion is, God sets the example. He says, hey, look, this is what's expected. And man says, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do my own thing. And so they set up a false religion. So we're going to look at the duties of a husband, duties of a wife, duties of parenting, duties of children, duties of siblings. Siblings have responsibilities in the home of things that they're supposed to do. All right. So first thing we're going to look at is the duties of a husband. Number one is a husband is to cleave to his wife. We see that in Genesis 2 verse 24. Says, therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. A man, when he gets married, he's not supposed to just stay at home and continue to live with mom and dad. He should be able to provide for himself, get out, and he's supposed to cleave to his wife. All right, there's supposed to be a tight knit fit there. And whenever I think of cleave and then the very next phrase is that there'll be one flesh, I think, man, it's almost like it's so tight you don't know where the one starts and the other begins, and the one ends and the other begins. They're one whole unit instead of being two separate whole units. The next thing we see a husband's supposed to do, we're going to be primarily in the New Testament. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 5. A husband is supposed to love his wife. And we see two different ways he's supposed to do this. First of all, Ephesians 5, verse 25 says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. We see the example set here that Christ is our example as husbands to love our wife. He loved the church so much he was willing to die for the church. And I think most husbands would say, yeah, I'd be willing to die for my wife. And that's good. It's a good example to set. But, I think God put one other example down here. And I think the second example, hey, don't get me wrong. The first example is very good. But how many of us are really going to have to actually do that? We'll actually have to die for our wife. You should be willing to, but how many will actually have to do that? This next way that we're supposed to love her, I think is sometimes a little more practical, because man, this one's a little bit harder to do sometimes. Look down in verse 28. It says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. This one I feel hits a little closer to home. We're supposed to love our wife like we love our own flesh. We make sure our flesh is taken care of. We make sure it's fed. We make sure there's little pain being brought upon us. And we need to make sure as husbands that we love our wife in that manner as well. We love her just as much as we would love ourselves and take care of ourselves. Because let's be honest, men, we can be selfish at times. And we focus in on ourselves and we just, I'm going to make sure my needs are met. Well, you know what? Take that kind of passion towards yourself and put it towards your wife and make sure that her needs are met. Make sure that her needs are met. The next thing we need to do is to provide for our wife. Look in 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8. It says, but if any provide not for his own, especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. The husband is supposed to be the provider. He's supposed to be the one who takes care of making sure there's food on the table, there's clothes on their back, there's a roof over the head. We as husbands need to make sure we do that part. I'm not saying a wife can't go have a job, but try not to rely upon your wife's work to take care of the family. I know there's times where there's times get tough, and sometimes wife has to work in order to help provide. You hear stories of back when there was the Great Depression. A lot of people were doing everything they could to try to make ends meet. And I understand that there are some exceptions where things like that happen, but for the most part, men, we need to be the main provider. We need to do our best to provide for our family and provide for our wife. And so we need to make sure we get out there and do that. Don't expect her to have to do that. We need to do that. All right, we need to do that. This next one is we need to give honor to our wife. Give honor to our wife. 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter 3, verse 7 says, likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife, as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. Men, be very careful about not honoring your wife. We need to make sure we honor her. She's a weaker vessel. We need to make sure she gets honor. One of the things you need to be careful. The lost world has a tendency to, when they go to work, they trash their wife. I hope that's not the case of Christians. If you're a Christian and you put your wife down at work behind her back, shame on you. Shame on you. You should lift her up. She should, really, men should be jealous that their wife isn't like your wife, my personal opinion. You should lift her up. She should be your best friend. She should be the one that you care the most about. One of the things I was thinking about, as I was thinking about this lesson today, I was thinking about, children, they're going to honor their mother, but they're only going to honor her as much as dad honors her. If dad puts her here, well, children will honor her that much as well. If dad puts her here, they'll honor her that much. If you want your children to show real great honor to your wife, to their mother, you need to set the example. They're looking at you and they see how you treat her. And if you're not treating her well, they're not going to treat her well. So make sure even in the home, her honor is given to her, so that the children see, man, I need to give mom that kind of honor and respect as well, because they're going to look up to you. They're going to look to you. You're supposed to be the leader, and you're setting the example. You're setting the tone in all things. And if you don't honor her to a great extent, neither will they. So be careful. Make sure you give honor to your wife. Don't air that dirty laundry to others, and let your children see. Don't let it just be outside the home you honor her, but inside you don't. Make sure inside the home the children see you honor her as well. Next thing, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7. These next two things are very close together. 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 3, it says, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. We're to render due benevolence to our wife. Often, sometimes guys look at their wife as an object for their own personal pleasure, but no, you need to take care of her needs. You need to make sure you take care of her and her, what she desires, what she wants. Sometimes she just wants to talk to you. She just wants some emotional support. Be there for her. Don't reject that. Don't deny her that. She needs to be able to come to you whenever she needs. The next is in chapter 5 is defraud not your wife. It says, defraud ye not one the other, except it be for consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Make sure you don't defraud her. All right, be careful of that. The last thing, and maybe this should have been the first one, but men, be the head of the home. be the head of the home. Ephesians chapter 5. Ephesians 5 has a lot to say about the husband and the wife duties. Ephesians 5 verse 23, it says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body." Men, we're to be the head in all areas, not just in some. So think about that. Your home encompass everything. You're the head. Well, one of the things I've learned is good leaders lead by example. Either they have done what they're asking others to do themselves, or they would be willing to do it themselves. All right. Don't be one that is not willing to do some things. As I heard a pastor put it, when I first got married, within the first year, he made mention of this, and I thought it was really good. He said, "Man, you shouldn't be afraid to vacuum. Your wife is your helpmeet. She is to help you. That doesn't mean that, oh, you do these things and I do these things. No, you should be willing to do some of those things. You should be willing to do dishes. You should be willing to vacuum, to do some of the cleaning in the home. Now, maybe your wife doesn't want you to do some of the cooking. I get that. You know, some wives are like, no, I got that, honey. You don't worry about that." But you know what? You should be willing to help her out in the areas that often the world looks upon as, those are the duties of the wife. Those are what the women folk do. Well, you should be willing to do it as well. You should lead by example. I was thinking about it. Sometimes maybe your kids won't see you necessarily do it as they grow older, and you say, "Hey, you need to do the dishes," and they think, "Well, how come Dad doesn't ever do it?" Oh, because Dad's done his time already. Dad has done the dishes many, many times, or that should at least be the case. I was the one of the blessings I had is I lived by myself for a little bit before I got married with my wife, and so I had all the duties. I had to do everything. And so it made me appreciate my wife a little bit more when I got someone else in my life, and she helps do some of those things. She's my helpmeet. I don't have to do all of it, even though there are times I step in and do take care of those duties. If don't let this kind of comment be said of you where my wife just needs to submit to me. Well, if you're leading properly, that means you're submitting yourself to your leadership, which is God. So think about this, men. If you're not submitting yourself to God and doing what he has expected you to do, how is your wife supposed to properly follow you and submit to you? I'm not saying she shouldn't. She should still submit. But you know what? It's real hard for someone to submit and follow somebody when they go, they're not doing what's right. They're not following their leadership. We as men, we need to make sure we're following our God. We're following his leadership. All right. Some basic things I thought of is, man, be faithful to be in the house of God on Sunday. I know right now we're all in quarantine. We can't be there. But when that quarantine lets up, are you going to be in the house of God every Sunday? Men, you need to take that step. You need to take that example. Don't put that on your wife. Don't have her take the children to church. No, men, you lead. You be in the house of God. You bring your family with you. Are you giving your tithes and offerings? Leading in the finances. All right. Your wife, yes, she should submit. She should follow you, but you better be doing your job first. And you're submitting to your authority, which is God, and doing what you know, this is what God expects of me. This is what I'm going to do. Are you leading? The next we're going to look at is the duties of the wife. What is she to do? Well, Ephesians 5:22, it says, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord." See, the husband, he submits himself to the Lord. Wives, you need to submit yourselves to your husband. Don't try to take the leadership from your husband. See, Eve did that with her husband. She tried to lead him, and look at the problems it caused. All right. God has set up things in the home a certain way. All right. The wife is to follow her husband. And don't make comments like, well, I am the next, so I direct the head. No, he's supposed to lead you. You're to follow him. You're supposed to follow what he wants. And you know what? It makes it a lot easier for a husband to lead a wife if she's not digging into the ground with her heels every time he's trying to do something and make a decision. Submit to him. All right. Say, well, I don't like what he's planning to do. Okay, well, I've got a solution for you. We're going to get to it in a minute as to what you can do if you go, man, I disagree with that. Okay, here's the solution. This is what you do. All right, well, we'll get to it in just a minute. The next thing she should do is she should reverence her husband. Look in verse 33 of Ephesians 5. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Be careful, ladies, about criticizing your husband to other people. Just like the husband should give honor to the wife should give reverence to her husband. You should speak highly of him to others. They don't need to know what the problems are. They should know that, man, there's a good home there. There's a happy home there. I know there's going to be problems. We're all sinners, okay? No home is perfect. So you have to work through those problems. But don't air your laundry out to other people. All right? Even your own family, okay? I don't need to run to my parents and tell them, man, my wife is doing this, this, and this. No, my parents don't need to know that. I need to get things squared away with my wife so that our relationship is good. And my parents only need to know the good things that are going on. Same with my wife. She doesn't need to run to her mother and her father and talk about, my husband's doing this, and I don't like what he's doing. No. She shouldn't do that either. If she's got a problem with me, she needs to talk to me about it. And we need to get it taken care of, get the problem solved, get back together so we're one flesh. All right? We're one flesh. Next thing, she's supposed to guide the house. She's to guide the household. 1 Timothy chapter 5. 1 Timothy 5:14, it says, I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. She should guide her family in the direction that her husband has established. All right. She helps with the children. And so her husband says, hey, this is the direction I want to go. All right. So she follows her husband and she guides her children to follow in that same direction as well. So the whole family is going as one unit in one direction, doing what is right. Lord willing, if the husband's doing the right leadership, if he's following God, they're going in the right way. Next, we see in 1 Corinthians 7:4-8, we just read that verse a little bit ago. She's to defraud not her husband. Just like the husband shouldn't defraud his wife, the wife, she shouldn't defraud her husband as well. All right. Then lastly, go to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1. I have this as pray for your husband. Pray for your husband. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives. Say, Pastor Dunbar, there's nothing about prayer in there. Well, this is talking to wives who have lost husbands. And their conversation, how they talk, their attitude, how they are in the household, it should be one that brings honor and glory to God. She shouldn't nag her husband about coming to church or trying to get him saved, but her conversation, how she is in the home, should be a good testimony. Well, I look at that and I think, well, then the wife should also be praying for her husband as well, asking God to change his heart, asking God to help him to see that he needs salvation. Well, if a wife should do that towards a husband that's lost, shouldn't she do that towards her husband that's saved? If you have a problem with what your husband's doing, he's saying, man, I don't think he's taking us in the right direction. Don't nag him about it. Go to God. Ask God to give him wisdom to lead the family in the right direction. That's what should be done. You should ask him, say, Lord, give him direction. Help them to see the way that they should go. Help them to know the right way that they should go. And God will do it. All right. If your husband is trying to do right, if your husband's trying to make right decisions, follow God, God will show him the way. And you together, if we do these things together, if the wife does her part, the husband does his part, he can lead their family to do what's right. and honor and pleasing to God, and have a good family, have a good home. There'll be arguments. All right, problems will come. It's going to happen. We are still sinful, man. We still have this flesh we live in. All right, but it'll be a lot peaceful household if we all try to do our part. Next week we'll look in. We'll see the children. Us as parents to our kids. What is the duties of the child or the parent? They have some duties they need to do, show towards the parents, and then duties amongst themselves, among siblings. Hope this was encouragement to you. Do you want to keep running this? Do you want to
I
start?
don't know, whatever you think.
We'll start up. Hey, folks, we're going to start a fresh one. So just go back to the homepage, and I'll start a fresh new live stream. That way, this will be Sunday school, and then we'll have on the links on our channel. We'll have some Sunday morning. So don't go anywhere. Refresh your browser. Go right back to the homepage, and we'll get things going. All right. See you in a bit.
Refresh your coffee. Hey.